Hi and welcome to this video on the book of Genesis. Genesis is the first book of the Bible, and it contains some of the most well-known stories and teachings of the Bible. It tells the story of the creation of the world, the first humans, and the history of the ancient Israelites. In this video, we will be taking a brief look at the main themes and events of the book of Genesis, as well as some of the key figures and teachings that it contains. The book of Genesis begins with the creation story, which describes how God created the world and all that is in it. According to this story, God created the heavens, the earth, and all living things in a period of 6 days, and on the seventh day, he rested. The creation story also describes the creation of the first humans, Adam and Eve, who were created in the image of God and given the task of caring for the earth and all living things. The book of Genesis also contains the story of the fall of humanity, which describes how Adam and Eve disobeyed God's command not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. As a consequence of their disobedience, they were expelled from the Garden of Eden and subjected to suffering and death. The fall of humanity is seen as the source of all of the problems and suffering that humans experience in the world. It is believed that, as a result of the fall, humans are separated from God and are in need of redemption. The book of Genesis tells us the stories of the patriarchs, who were the early leaders of the Israelite people. These stories include the accounts of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who are considered to be the fathers of the Israelites. They also describe the promises that God made to the patriarchs, including the promise to bless them and make them a great nation, and the promise to give them the land of Canaan as their inheritance. These promises are seen as the foundation of the covenant between God and the Israelites. The book of Genesis also contains the story of Joseph, who was the son of Jacob and a powerful figure in the history of the Israelites. According to the story, Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers and rose to power in Egypt, where he saved the country from famine and became a ruler. The Joseph story is seen as an important part of the history of the Israelites, as it describes how they came to live in Egypt and how they were eventually delivered from slavery by God. It is also seen as an example of the ways that God can use even the most difficult circumstances to bring about good. The book of Genesis contains many important teachings and themes that are relevant to people of all times and places. Some of these teachings include the existence and nature of God. The book of Genesis teaches that there is one God who is all-powerful and all-knowing, and who created the world and all that is in it. The nature of humanity. The book of Genesis teaches that humans are created in the image of God and are given a special role in the world. It also teaches that humans are flawed and prone to sin, and that they are in need of redemption. The importance of obedience. The book of Genesis teaches that obedience to God is important, and that disobedience has consequences. It also teaches that God is merciful and will forgive those who repent of their sins. The concept of covenant. The book of Genesis teaches that God makes covenants, or promises, with his people, and that these covenants are meant to be enduring and faithful. This concludes our brief overview of the book of Genesis. As you can see, the book of Genesis is an important and influential part of the Bible, and it contains many teachings and stories that are still relevant today. Whether you are a person of faith or simply interested in the history and teachings of the Bible, the book of Genesis is definitely worth exploring. Thank you for joining us today.